Coalition of Geospatial Organizations, Danielle mentioned it just briefly, but it's a brand new organization, just started in August and has had one meeting. And it's all the geospatial organizations, so there's about a dozen of those that relate to lots of different folks, public works, government agencies, private sector, et cetera. And then we've also got the American Planning Association, the National Association of State CIOs, the Western Governors Association, the National Association of Counties are all members of that organization as well, trying to advocate for geospatial issues on the national level. I want to preface what I'm going to talk about just briefly. The national approach to geospatial activities really has to meet local government and state government business needs. If it doesn't do that, then there's no point in doing it. And we've really struggled with that over the course of the last 15 years as we've been trying to approach a national effort to develop the geospatial infrastructure, because we haven't been meeting those needs, and local governments have not been participating. So you've got parcels or tax lots, you've got roads, land use, zoning, et cetera, at the local government level that state agencies and federal agencies and regional agencies need that aren't part of that national infrastructure right now, because the local governments don't see a reason to participate. But GIS gives us the ability to create data once and then use it across all those levels of government if we can figure out that, if we can make it happen so that we're meeting those business needs. The purpose of a national geospatial infrastructure is to provide accurate, reliable data for decisions regarding health, safety and welfare, security and prosperity of citizens. GIS is being applied to many of our nation's problems. Just to give you an example of what I'm talking about when I talk about geospatial infrastructure, it's data, but it's also the ability to manage that data effectively, to create it once to standards so that it meets many, many purposes. So temperature monitoring, this is for salmon recovery in the Pacific Northwest. Measure 49 is a land use initiative in the state of Oregon. It's used for emergency response, fighting wildfires, big issue in the West. And those little dots are houses, and the red line is the fire perimeter. That was about a 6,000-acre fire. It's used for parcels and showing aerial photography, so parcel mapping for tax assessment purposes at the local level, and then incident response, public safety, police, fire, ambulance, etc. The national geospatial infrastructure was initiated by presidential executive order in 1994. We still haven't completed it 15, 16 years later. And there have been a number of things done. There's a strategy. It hasn't been updated since 1997, but there is a strategy, and they're working on updating it now. But the point was, it was federally initiated, and a lot of the activities have been federal activities. So they've done some good work, but a large part of the work remains to be done. And really what we need is a unified vision. As I was talking about, every level of government really needs to have the same vision about what we're trying to create here, and has to meet everybody's business needs. We need a strategic framework for that. And so there are a number of groups that are working on just that very thing right now. The National States Geographic Information Council that I was president of last year, the state GIS coordinators, put out what they believe are the 6 things that need to be done, primary things that need to be done in terms of a strategic framework. So I'll explain what each of these are. We'll go through them one at a time. 50 plus state spatial data infrastructures, meaning instead of trying to build a national approach, build this a state at a time using the best local government, regional government, state agency data, and then stitch that together to make a national geospatial infrastructure. So there's a 50 states initiative that NSGIC, that's how you pronounce that, NSGIC, NSGIC, that NSGIC initiated, and the federal government has now taken on and is providing grants to states. Georgia got a grant for as part of the 50 states initiative this year, and Danielle and Eric have been pursuing a strategic planning initiative as part of that. And basically, the 50 States Initiative provides a solid foundation for states through strategic and business plan development. And the states are supposed to involve the local and regional governments in this strategic planning. And that's certainly what they've been doing in Georgia. I'm going to be doing that next year in Oregon to update my strategic plan. And as it says here, it's a bottom-up approach. It's not just state agencies. But that program provides templates and so on to be able to, and measured results to be able to do strategic planning. So this is kind of a neat diagram that explains what we're trying to do in general. Just building a blanket out of this quilt of state agency and local government data sets and infrastructure. We've got state GIS coordination councils in most states around the country, but they've been put together in different ways. I believe in Georgia right now it's a voluntary council. In Oregon it's a council created by executive order. In a number of other states, Texas it shows here, Washington, the ones in green are legislatively enacted. And Arkansas is actually, the governor is pursuing legislation this year, in this next legislative session, to make the office, the Geospatial Enterprise Office there, a state agency, reporting directly, a cabinet level position, reporting directly to the governor. So kind of a first for that. And then part of this 50 States initiative is to create information about where everything is. So you have a facts base to know what data has been created, what data hasn't been created, what you still need to accomplish. Being able to look at total cost of ownership and return on investment across the whole state for the geospatial infrastructure. And I know Georgia has been participating in that and provided training through the regional governments for that GIS inventory. So they've already started that. In terms of governance, there's been federal leadership on governance. Standards, the Office of Management and Budget has a circular A16 that deals with this. They've recently established the National Geospatial Advisory Committee, which is it provides equitable membership for all the different sectors of government for the first time. So they're trying to make this more than just a federal initiative, trying to make it a truly national initiative with local governments and private sector and so on. So to go beyond that is they need to make that into that. Right now that council is just an advisory committee to a federal committee of federal agencies, and they need to make that a true GIS coordination council that has some authority rather than just an advisory committee. And then you see here the 50 States Initiative statewide councils that we mentioned earlier. On the right-hand side in the red box, the Federal Geographic Data Committee, so that's the federal agency's organization. And in the middle, that might be the COGO, that might be NSGIC. There are a lot of different professional associations that could be part of this. For the nation initiatives, that's the data development part of it. So developing a nationwide level of parcel data sets, a nationwide set of transportation, of road center lines and address ranges and mileposts, nationwide set of zoning and land use information and so on, nationwide set of elevation data. There's a list of 7 nationally recognized data sets that we've been trying to build across the country for 14 years and still haven't developed all of those. And then each state has a series of, in Oregon, for example, we have a bioscience theme, we have a geoscience theme that has soils, it has landslides, etc. And then we've made a good start at this with an Imagery for the Nation program. The federal government has now taken that on and is funding it, and it's going to be every 3 years for every state. You'll get imagery at a 1 meter level, and then imagery for the urban areas at a greater level of resolution. There are several others: transportation, addressing, elevation, and we need to have data stewardship. We need to have agencies take these on in each state and at each local government level so that they're the stewards of this data and they're maintaining it for the benefit of everyone else. We need a national funding approach so that everybody's got the funding that they need to do this, and that's been a big problem over the years. We need to be able to track the benefits and then put a portion of that back into the funding. It needs to be business driven, which I've talked about. You need to have business drivers at every level. We need to have an advocacy program so that everybody has the same level of understanding. That's part of gaining this unified vision and approach. And then the technology, we need to have a shared services and a service-oriented architecture that enables this so that everybody can make use of this for business applications. This is a brand new bit of thinking that came out of a conference that we did a couple of months ago where we were talking about, well, okay, so how do we make all this happen? And an idea came out to treat this as a stack, with a stack approach, a one government approach. So you're looking at all the different levels of government, and business lines, you have business lines that cut across all those levels of government. Emergency response is a good example. You need geospatial information to enable emergency response across that whole stack of government agencies. And you need data that will meet all of those business needs. So let's approach it that way. Build that data once and build it so that all those different levels of government can use it for that same emergency response, that same line of business that they have to cooperate on. And then you can do things like return on investment calculations and total cost of ownership calculations. You can do opportunity mining where you don't need a single deciding authority, and that's a real problem. Who is the deciding authority for something like that? So, but you can make it work. And generalize the data, and you can have a real fact space of GIS applied across all the different jurisdictions and levels of government that we've never been able to have before. Thank you very much.
Sure.